Hi guys, hope everyone's well and welcome back to the channel. So today we're in for push. As you've seen, first movement I've got in this session is a lateral raise, which I went over quite a few times, but I used to put it at the start, get the shoulder warm. You can't really have big enough side delt, sorry. And as well as that, with the lateral raise, what I like to focus on is driving out, not just up. So although the machine might start and end in the same position, if you cue driving out, you'll be more likely to use your side delt than if you drive up. If you drive up, not that we want to pin our shoulders down or keep them there, it's okay to allow your shoulders to move, but I'll encourage you to basically not shrug as much by cueing out instead of up. So first compound in today's session is going to be an incline press. And with an incline press, obviously most individuals will have it in place to bias their upper chest. And if that is your goal, make sure you've got the seat set high enough and you're pressing from a low to high path. If your elbows flared excessively and you're pressing more horizontally, it's going to be more of just like a overall pec exercise, mid pec, and overall like front delt exercise. So the roll of your upper pec is gonna to press from that low to high path, so make sure you're doing so here. And with this machine, this is a prime incline press where you can actually load the pegs separately. Benefit of that is it allows you to tailor the resistance to where you're strong and where you're weak. And obviously I know not everyone's got access to this. If you do have access to prime kit and you're unsure how to load it, just fire it on the mid peg, you can't really go wrong there. However, if you find you fail at the lockout on, let's say, the chest press for example, you could load more at the top, just so it's really difficult throughout the full range. But I'd never really load the bottom peg, or very, very rarely, because we're already weak at that shortened position, the top position, so it doesn't make sense overloading it. So typically, I'd always recommend using the middle peg or the top peg. So next up we have a Smith flat press. So this kind of couples well with the prime incline, just because it will work a bit of your kind of mid slash lower pec. I don't do a lot of like decline work, just because I feel like when you're doing a flat press and you're already arching your upper back, you're going to get the lower pec fibres involved there. And I've also got a dip variation if you'd class that as a lower pec exercise, which it definitely will work the lower pec. So yeah, 2 sets on each compound movement here, and rep ranges are around about like 8 to 10 and 10 to 12. And here what I'm focusing on is basically driving my elbows in as I press and keeping my elbow stacked under the bar. And the reason again why I'm driving my elbows in is that's the role of the pec, so it encouraged me to actually use the function of the pec and train that a bit more effectively instead of maybe more triceps and front delt. So next up we've got a dumbbell lateral raise, and when I'm performing this, you'll notice it could be stricter and it could be maybe a bit tighter in terms of form. However, I feel like with like a dumbbell lateral raise, if your form looks absolutely perfect, like it's something in an exercise library from the very start to the very finish, you're potentially setting yourself short in terms of how much weight you can lift. And at the end of the day, something important to remember is what's the goal? The goal isn't to make your sets look as pretty as possible. The goal is to build muscle. So don't get caught up on, yes, make sure your form's good, but at the end of the day, it's like the judges aren't going to ask me how much I've done on the dumbbell lateral or how pretty my form looks. They're going to see how much kind of muscles on my side delt, and if I just keep it absolutely perfect, I'm not really going to get much progression out of them, and we need to kind of apply progressive overload, increased load to kind of build muscle. So it's definitely a balancing act, but I think the sweet spot's somewhere in the middle. Just remember, your goal's not to make your sets look pretty, it's to make them effective, and the two don't always go hand in hand, like with a bent over row, with dumbbell lateral. So next up we've got a chest fly. So what's the benefit of isolation work? Isolation work, like doing a chest fly, allows you to kind of get additional volume for your chest without accumulating additional volume for areas like your front delt, your triceps, quite as much as if you're doing a press, which could be handy if you're really trying to push the amount you're doing and you're really pushing your recovery capabilities. Also, it just ensures you're definitely not going to be kind of hitting tricep as well. for whatever reason, if maybe you're training triceps soon, or maybe you just have big enough triceps and want more chest. So with the chest fly, one of the kind of mistakes I see people make is when they get to the shortened position, or in other words, when they get to this top position, they see their chest collapse slightly. So make sure you keep that proud chest. Some movement in the shoulders is okay, but we don't want it to the extent that your shoulders come ahead of your chest. The reason we want some movement is we need some movement in our shoulders to fully shorten the pec or to fully contract the pec. But it's somewhere on a spectrum. Do we want our shoulders pinned back as much as we possibly can? No. However, do we want our shoulders coming forward, protracting excessively and being ahead of our chest? No. Want somewhere in between. What I'd say is just make sure, like, after the set, where do you feel it? Do you feel like a lot of pec, or do you feel a lot of shoulders? And that can maybe tell you, right, are you executing it effectively or not? Something you can also think about when doing any sort of kind of fly variation is when you get to the bottom, pinning your shoulders back. So a fully stretched pec isn't just when your arms behind your body, it's when your arms behind your body and your shoulders back. So what you can do is, again, think about bringing your shoulders back in the stretch. And also when you're doing any sort of press, think about kind of rolling down and pinching everything at the bottom will allow you to get a bit more range of motion for your chest. So give that a try and see if that helps. So something massive when it comes to tricep extensions is like the amount of range of motion you're getting. So you'll notice there, like, I've pretty much got my forearm touching my bicep. For whatever reason, a lot of people will stop very, very short on that. And the same principles apply to tricep training as any other body part. Generally, it's a good practice to use full range of motion. And so that will mean you'll probably use substantially less weight. However, the goal's big tricep. The goal's not to stack a tricep extension or whatever. Nobody really cares about that or finds that impressive anyway. So yeah, make sure you're using a full range. Also, keep your elbow back when you're in the stretch. So what you don't want is you don't want your elbow coming forward. What that basically does is make it easier in that stretch position. As well as that, what it'll do is basically mean what's moving first. It can be your upper arm going back, which partly your triceps responsible for, but I don't think it's worth the lack of tension that you'll then get in the stretch position, if that makes sense. Like, just because this is one of the roles of the triceps doesn't mean we necessarily need to train it throughout the movement. So what I find is during overhead work, a lot of people get joint discomfort. If this is the case for yourself, make sure when you perform it, you're again using a full range. And what you can do is dial back the weight. If it's sore, try and work it back up again. Another common issue I see people is they don't have enough mobility to get completely overhead. So if that's the case for yourself, you get pain here, despite your form being perfect, dialing back the load, higher rep range, then what you can try is doing it how I'm doing, and I'm not actually got my arm fully overhead, and it's a bit more of a friendlier position to work in, and then you can gradually improve your mobility and kind of work overhead over time. And with this, what I'm actually allowing my elbows to do is come down as I'm lowering, and that will basically again load my tricep more in the stretch. And as I'm coming up, I will actually drive up a bit, not just down. If I drive down, the rope will basically hit against my head will get in the way. So give that a try if you have any issues with joint discomfort during like tricep work. But most of the time you can solve joint issues just by dialing load back, having better form, using a greater range of motion, and then increasing it back up over time. So quick prep update on where I'm currently at. So I'm currently 15 weeks out, which marks halfway through my prep until my first show of the season. My current body weight is hovering around 168 to 170 pounds at the moment, and everything's going pretty smoothly. I'm just gradually dropping body weight. Currently doing cardio 2 times a week. My current steps are 7,500 training day, 10,000 non-training day. However, I'm usually averaging about 12 to 13,000 a week, just due to personal training commitments. Training's still going well, taking some progressions here and there and retaining most other things, with a very slight drop in performance every now and then when it comes to push for the most part. But everything's going pretty smoothly and I'm happy with where I'm at and the improvements I've made so far. Just in case I keep chipping away and doing everything I can to be my best one show day.